Hi, this is Sam Spagnola at the Spagnola Law Firm here in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm going to spend a few minutes with you talking about alimony in North Carolina law and what that is. Generally speaking, alimony is support that is paid from one spouse to another for their reasonable needs, not to be confused with child support. Child support is money paid from one spouse to the other for the support of children. Alimony is for the support of the other spouse. In North Carolina, we do not have any guidelines for alimony, unlike child support, where you can count the gross income of each party, the number of kids at issue, the health insurance costs, and the child care costs, plug that into a guideline and you get a number. We don't have that in alimony. Alimony instead is based on a number of factors that a court considers in determining whether they're going to award alimony, how much alimony they're going to award, and how long they're going to award that alimony. And each judge has the discretion in most cases to make that call, which is why your alimony outcome in front of one judge might be completely different than it would be if it was in front of another judge, because each judge is going to weigh these individually, and they all, they have their own sort of biases and opinions on things when it comes to applying those factors. So that's the difference in child support and alimony, is what it's for and how it's determined. So when we talk about the financial needs of a party in an alimony case, we're talking about their actual needs along with their living standard during the marriage. Now, in order to get alimony, you have to be a dependent spouse. And what that means is you have to show that you are actually dependent on the other person's income to meet your reasonable needs, or substantially dependent upon the income of the other party to meet your reasonable needs. The other party, if you can show that you're dependent, is considered a supporting spouse in North Carolina, and they're ones that are supposed to be supporting you in that situation. Now, that said, a supporting spouse has their own needs. So just because you're dependent doesn't mean a judge is going to make the other party pay you money, because they also have their own needs that the court has to consider as well. And if they can't meet their own reasonable needs, they're probably not going to be required to meet yours unless there are other factors that sort of weigh in your favor versus that other person, if you're the one seeking alimony. And one of those could be, for example, marital misconduct, which is sort of bad behavior during the marriage. Spousal abuse, drug abuse, and certainly having an affair are major issues in alimony cases that can persuade a judge to go one way or another if it's established that there is in fact a dependent spouse. Now, it's discretionary up to that point, except if one spouse proves that the other spouse has had a sexual relationship during the marriage with someone else. If you're the dependent spouse and you can establish that the supporting spouse has had a relationship with somebody else, a sexual relationship, can't just be a relationship, it has to have sex involved, then the other spouse must pay you some amount of alimony if you're dependent. That amount and how long is up to the discretion of the court, but what's not up to the discretion of the court in that situation is awarding alimony. They must award some amount under those circumstances. Except, on the other hand, if you're the person seeking alimony and you are the one who had the sexual relationship during the marriage and the other spouse did not, then you cannot get alimony from the other spouse regardless of what your needs are. At that point, that is not discretionary either. It would be error for a judge to award alimony to a spouse that's dependent but has engaged in a sexual relationship while the supporting spouse did not. And it won't matter in those circumstances what else the supporting spouse did, you would not get any alimony. So that's the only time where alimony becomes non-discretionary, where the judge has to do one thing or the other because the law tells them that they must. Other factors are the age of the parties. A person who's younger probably is less likely to get alimony for as long as somebody who's older, simply because the younger person has the ability to earn more money. They have more time to go back to school and get an education and increase their earning capacity versus somebody who's at the end of their career who's already probably reached their economic limits of earnings. So that can also go to the amount of alimony. A person who is younger has the ability to more quickly increase their earnings so that they're less dependent upon the other spouse in needing alimony. The length of the marriage, as we said before, that's a big factor. The longer you're married, usually the longer the alimony obligation is going to be, if there's going to be one. Alimony can be for a lifetime in certain circumstances. The judge has the discretion to do that. So that's something you usually don't see unless it's a very long marriage and the parties are older, but it can happen even with parties that aren't as necessarily as old as someone who's near retirement age. The other things that the court consider are your liabilities of the parties. What other debts do they have, and how does that affect their needs if you're a dependent spouse, or their ability to pay if you're a supporting spouse? What other assets the party has at their disposal? If they have an inheritance or money's left to them, that can be a factor as a dependent spouse and a supporting spouse, because that certainly would be money that's available to meet your reasonable needs. So that's a factor as well that the court can consider. So these are just kind of a broad overview of what the court looks at in an alimony case to determine if alimony if the person's eligible for alimony. If they are, how much they should get paid and how long that payment should be. And again, these are all discretionary up to a judge unless there's a sexual affair involved in these cases. So I hope this is helpful to you. If you already have a lawyer, maybe if you didn't quite understand something, hopefully it clears up some of that. Again, there are other factors of alimony. I did not go into each and every one of these, just trying to give you a broad overview of that. If you've not met with a lawyer yet, then hopefully this video will help you understand some of these concepts before you meet your lawyer, so maybe you can raise some of these issues with the lawyer if they apply in your case. Again, my name is Sam Spagnola. I'm a board-certified family law specialist here in Greensboro, North Carolina. If we can help you with your case, please give us a call at 336-373-8469. Thank you.